Okay, thanks for everybody that waited for this interview to start. I am joined here by Guillermo from California, and we're doing another episode of Testigo Venezuela. And Guillermo's, this is your first time with us. We've had three other gentlemen who have showed up. So please tell us how long you've been in the United States since leaving Venezuela, why you left Venezuela, and what you think in general about the course of the country right now.
Okay, I've been here since 1980, 81 perhaps. And I left Venezuela because honestly, I have a big distrust of the Venezuelan electoral wisdom. Let's put it this way. The country was involved in corruption, a lot of corruption. And my way of thinking is that it didn't matter how rich a country might be, corruption is not sustainable. When corruption makes metastasis, we put it this way, it's uncontrollable and it's going to grow because it's besides its corruption, it's not being taken into books and then controlled or ruled by law, and it's corruption. So there is no control. So, and that was my one of the major thing. The other thing was, I wanted to study the United States, like an archaeologist or an anthropologist that goes to a tribe. I wanted to study the United States tribe for being so successful, and it was a clear contrast with Venezuela. So I wanted to understand that. I wanted to understand where the power was, compared with the thing I had known. There were some other things. I wanted to learn English, which unfortunately I never accomplished.
We'll keep the process going today.
Yeah. I had another, youthful dream about getting a boat, a sailing boat, and go around the world and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to work in the aerospace industry, computing orbits or satellites and things like that, and join to that. I thought that was probably a better career for me than being an instructor in a university, which was what I was doing in Venezuela. So then I came. I was very naive. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a green card was. Everybody went to Venezuela and worked without problem. Why the United States not the same thing? So it was a lot of things, imprudent things that you do when you are young and strong. Let's put it this way. And then, well, some of my dreams came true, some others didn't come true, and some others I just abandoned, like the sailing boat. That was crazy. To have a sailing boat, you have to have at least $150,000 just to throw on the sea. And when you grow up a little bit, you say, well, look, I better buy a house. So, but I'm quite satisfied. The medical dream, I had the American dream, and a full patriotic American, heartfelt American, because this is a country of my children. So, and that's what you become. You think of the future. The future in the United States is the future of my children. When someone says America first, what I hear is my children first. And that's my position.
Okay, so we're talking a lot about your home country, or I guess your country of birth, because apparently, I mean, you identify as a full American now. Obviously, you're a citizen. and you know, welcome. My dad and my mom both immigrated here too,
Yeah.
so
Well, you know, it doesn't mean that I have forgotten Venezuela in any way. I mean, there is no contradiction on that, you know, and I still, you know, very much aware of the politics there. I do what I can, but well, you know, I was involved 10 years ago, very much, very strongly into removing the government there, the Chavez government, and I did what I could, but. Still the Venezuelan population doesn't have political wisdom to do things like you know a very obvious mistakes, and they still doing it. They don't know how to. I'm talking about the opposition. They don't know how to do politics. You know, the opposition have been talking to themselves. And in politics, you don't talk to yourself. You don't talk to your people. You talk to the other people, the other side. You are trying to move them, to convince them. Those are the ones that you talk. You don't. What is the expression in American? You don't preach to the choir. You don't. There's an expression in that regard. I don't
so
know
we,
if you know it.
yeah, absolutely. And with Venezuela recently, now I've done. This will be the ninth episode. This is the ninth episode of this series. And we've just discussed a lot of it, and every time it seems that it can't get any worse for the country. And I just saw this article, and I'm going to show it on screen. I hope you can see it, but the audience will be able to see it. It says, "We loot or we die of hunger. Food shortages fuel unrest in Venezuela." And it's from The Guardian, which is not.
We live without hunger. Food shortages fuel unrest in Venezuela. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, so we have this. It's not just a political crisis; it's a humanitarian crisis. And I actually did a video yesterday. It's also an environmental crisis in the Arco Minero. So please check that out. Anybody watching, Guillermo, I'll send it to you later. Where you know the people of Venezuela are basically they've gone from being one of the most stable and for Latin America they were one of the better, more stable, more economically successful countries, and now you have people who are actually on the brink of starvation. So Guillermo, could you tell us how was, I mean, you left the country in 1980, and you said that there was corruption back then. This was before Chavez, and he wanted to solve it. Can you describe the change between that country of your time there and what it is now? What's like the thing that you really think has changed the most? Is it the freedom? Is it the the opportunity there? What's the biggest change, if I could put it this way?
Well, let me tell you. The country was more or less a decent country until 1973, when Carlos Andrés Pérez won the presidency the first time. There was corruption, but the corruption had not made metastasis. Let's take the corruption was a cancer. When Carlos Andrés Pérez was the first oil boom of prices very high, and then Carlos Andrés Pérez implemented what I would call democratized corruption. So now it wasn't only the top people, but everybody has some access to corruption. Apparently, he tried to make that money accessible to people, and he did it through corruption, right? That was his way. The country were bad, it started to decay. He was never prosecuted. So the next government, the lesson was clear. You can do all the corruption that you and nothing was going to happen. So the next government was equally or more corrupt. And then the whole thing came, corruption is something that you cannot reverse. It's very difficult to reverse. It's almost impossible. And then in 1998, Venezuela was very low. People were very pissed off about the old parties, the two parties that had control all this corruption process, and then they went for Chavez, who presented himself as a middle class, decent individual. So he appealed to the middle class, he appealed to the intellectual, he appealed to the independent that always had wanted a third option, a third option other than the two parties. And then, well, everybody thought, well, this is the third option. So did I. So I was part of that group. And then Chavez presented to the country the changing of the constitution and a lot of reform, always playing very well the role of a moderate guy, no a communist or a socialist at all. He played that part. And he did something that I find very interesting and very, I don't know exactly how he did it, because once in the government, he changed constituency. He started doing things that alienate him from the middle class, the intellectual, the educated class, and start gaining the support of the uneducated class. The same class that had been supported the two parties during the first phase, let's put it, the pre-Chavez phase. So this class, the uneducated class, in 1998, the election that Chavez won, and Chavez won that election with the middle class. That uneducated class did abstain, didn't participate much. They belonged to the old parties, but they were also pissed off by the old parties, so they didn't endorse anyone, just abstain from voting. Okay, so then somehow Chavez gained from the government, gained that class, the uneducated class, and of course that alienated the middle class and the uneducated class, because this guy was starting to behave very weirdly, and it was clear that he was changing in a bad direction. And then, well, Chavez started doing things like arming bands and trying to create violent confrontation among the civil population. He wanted to do what Hitler did in the case of creating the black shirt. That what he did. The other difference that Venezuela was not Germany, so the population reacted in the same way. Very confrontational, but Chavez didn't mind, because now, with the little wisdom I might have now, I understand that there are really that want to destroy the nation. The left always want to destroy the nation. The left always want to harm their own society. And this is what Chavez did. He did everything that he did, the destruction of the economy, what is that? When you nationalize everything, talking about, any farm, anything, any business nationalized, because that's going to help the people. Well, that business is just destroyed. Nobody can take over the business and do the same thing that the original owner was doing. And that's what he did. He destroyed all the production, all the industry, all the production structure and anything. He destroyed that.
Okay, so Guillermo, I have a couple questions from the audience which have to do with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we have a user. His name is Augusto Pinochet, but it's obviously not the real Augusto Pinochet. He's asking, are the problems with the mining and lumber companies an old problem, or is this like a recent issue that's cropped up? I'm assuming he's talking with PDVSA and some of the other companies that are in Venezuela. How recently has that been a problem?
Well, what I'm trying to summarize is what Chavez did. Chavez died 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and what Chavez was doing at the beginning of the 2000s, after he changed the constitution, he had a strong leadership, people that follow him. He was able to change the constitution and recreate the state. Once you create the state, it's easy to do all the rest. Many people to control a state. How many people you need? 10,000 people to control everything. I cannot give you a specific about a particular industry. The industry I remember, there was some local production of goods, produce, vegetables, things like that. There was some industry, candies, cigarettes, some consumption, some. But essentially, it destroyed all that. He destroyed all that, and he was counting in having all the money of the world because of the oil, the oil well. And then, in my view, he resented any economic power because he wanted to have all power. And to have all power, you have to have the political power and also the economic power. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to destroy everything, so everything was imported. And at some point, after he died, I believe that after he died, the oil prices came down completely, half of what he was, or less. And then, the people started starving.
Okay, so a couple other questions in the meantime. So we have Loafer Wolf asked, did they kill most of the intellectuals in the country? Now, I think you did go into that they didn't kill the people, but what exactly did people who were, university professors or, just domestic opponents, journalists, how did Mr. or Commander Chavez, President Chavez, and Maduro deal with them?
Deal with the people from the universities?
Yeah, universities and journalists.
Well, there wasn't anything visible about killing anyone the way I see it. There was a lot of intimidation, of course. He was very careful of not becoming or doing anything like that because probably necessary. He just had all the power. He had all the economic power, all the political power. He could afford to leave. He did nationalize a lot of the media. The media was the main opposition media. He bought out another big media. He negotiated with these guys, so they behave, and they're still behaving. So he controlled the media. The newspaper, perhaps there is a newspaper that it doesn't control that much. That wasn't significant in terms of endangering his control of the country.
So we have
he was very he was very capable in what he was doing. He knew how to intimidate. He knew how to lie, how to deceive. He was capable in what he was doing. And that's the reason he could do it. He destroyed the country. And he destroyed the country because his purpose, far-fetched, but his purpose was to destroy the country because that's part of the left. And you see over here, you see the left always approving, trade agreements that doesn't benefit the American people. That's what the left is. Europe approving a massive immigration of culture that cannot be to the Western culture, the Islamic thing. And that's what the left does. The old left, the complex that you hate your father and so you want to kill him. I don't know if you can remember
Oedipus complex.
Freud talked about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then he did it because he wanted to do it.
So I have another question from Pinochet. Again, this is a current event that happened last week with Óscar Pérez, the gentleman. I think he was a police officer who was killed by a Venezuelan government assault team. And I have an article. I'll just introduce it and then I'll ask your opinion on the matter. It says, not considered a serious rebel while alive, Venezuelan emerges as powerful after death. I don't think it has his photo. Oh, here it is. This is actually the video of him when he was under attack by the government, Mr. Perez.
Yeah.
You probably can't hear the audio of it.
Yeah, I review some of the material.
So this gentleman was a former police officer, and this sensational story caught the attention of a lot of people around the world because he was live streaming his own killing. So,
yeah.
Could you describe to me, Mr. Rios, what's the, like, Venezuelans around the world, do they see Mr. Perez or Commander Perez as a hero? I don't know what his rank is, but or do they think that this was kind of not really a serious rebellion, because there isn't that much armed resistance to the government, and to be honest with you, I don't think that Perez really had a chance of bringing down the regime. But what's your opinion of his career and now his death?
Yes, I know. I don't think he had a chance. He was counting, for what I could see, he was counting that once he was in that predicament, armed resistance, the people will rise on the street of Caracas. And that didn't happen. The government reacted. They were surrendering. They was in need of killing him and his group, but they went with all military, not police equipment, but military equipment to make sure that he got dead. And they didn't want him alive because they were afraid, and that's my view, they were afraid that Óscar Pérez will become a new Chavez, because then that's the history that they manage. Chavez had this rebellion. He was captured. He wasn't killed. All of the people that were not killed. There was a lot of death in that rebellion, but the leadership of the whole thing were not killed. And then eventually, they got into the presidency and into become a leader, or a military leader, or ex-military leader, whatever. The rest is history. I think they were afraid that Óscar Pérez will become a new Chavez, which I don't think it would have been the case because the opposition is into another thing. Nobody wants a new Chavez. But, you know, they see the world their way, and in their way, their fear was that Óscar Pérez, if he was captured alive and then put into prison, it will be a point of consolidation of something more, something stronger as an opposition, a new Chavez. And they don't want a new Chavez because that's the way that they see the world. So, and then he had to be killed. And he was killed. I think he was quite naive. Sometimes people, he was accompanied by 6 other followers, or 5 or 6 followers. And he was a kind of a Don Quixote. I don't know. This is the figure that comes to my mind. Don Quixote, you know, enterprise.
Yeah, like he was having like a fantasy that he was going to win.
Exactly. Exactly. He wasn't having a realistic view of things. I don't know why. You know, he thought that people was going to race and in the streets and things like that. He had fantasy. He didn't have, you know, a realistic view of things, which happened to another Leopoldo Lopez. He's another political leader that I admire, and I think it also has a very naive view of what the country is. You know, a country full of people, very human people, with all these weaknesses and flaws of people. You know, and and Oscar Perez, I'm really sorry for him, but he was quite naive. He had children. He wanted to get into politics. He should have done it in a different way. He accomplished nothing, and a tragedy.
Okay, so I have a few more questions. We'll try. Let's try to go through them a little quickly. I have 2 from a guy VERL. I think it's just Verl. He says, "Does Venezuela have drug problems like America?" And well, okay. So can you answer that question first, because he has another one that's totally unrelated.
Well, I'm not quite aware. Marijuana is something that is smoke. You know. I don't know any major things. They call it a narco state, and some relative of the leadership role of Maduro and thing have been captured here in the United States for drug smuggling, big amount of cocaine. So and they now in jail with a hefty sentence or something. So they say that they traffic, the government people does a lot of drug trafficking, and they get money, and they can do it because, well, they are in the government. So the local police is not going to do anything against them. You know, how much of that drug is consumed in the country? Substantially. Marijuana, yes. Marijuana is a lot. Always been. You know, but marijuana is a recreational drug, so.
Okay, so I have another one from Verl. Is baseball dead in Venezuela? I know how rich of a baseball country they have. Has the game survived? Because, you know, Miguel Cabrera is from Venezuela. Andres Galarraga, when I was a kid, he was a player for Colorado. There's actually a lot of great players right now in the major leagues from Venezuela. How is it that that sport survives over there? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I'm confused by the question. Why he shouldn't survive?
Well, you know, people don't really have enough to eat, so why should they be able to play baseball over there? It's kind of, or how do they even have an audience who has money to go to a baseball game? I mean, I guess maybe the games are cheap, but you know, we're talking about a country where there's a humanitarian crisis.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, sometimes in the most difficult times, something to to make things easier to carry. There is food in Venezuela for people that had a lot of money. You know, the food, just to give you an, you know, if I went to Venezuela, you know, I will find meat half the price of the American price, right? I will find probably 1 kilo, which is around 2 pounds, for $3. You know, for any person with a hard currency, that's affordable. But the problem is that the large amount of the population no more. They have a minimum salary that probably I don't know, probably $10 something, and prices are international prices because there always are international prices, unless you get into subsidies and things like that. That the Venezuelan government don't have the money to indulge into. Now, so there is a lot of people, yes, starving. I see the pictures, the children, the parents. What they do is that they cook pasta, and they give the children the pasta, and they just drink the water as their food or the pasta. You know, the water that was cooked. So no, there is a lot of starvation because people cannot afford those prices. People cannot go, and then he get a job, and then for the ticket to ride to the job location and back is as much as they're gonna make that day. What's the point? There is a lot of starvation. Um, supposedly the government is going to provide affordable food. That's the socialist thing, the Marxist thing, and the country and the government cannot provide that or will not provide that. Probably they could. I don't know. But these people don't have the access to food. All those markets are completely empty. The subsidized markets are completely empty. I know of people that are doing well. I have a friend. One occasion, like a year ago, she visited me. Doctor, no, I have no problem. I have no problem. The crime, of course, is a problem. You cannot be all the time, watching your back, and in a way that is very sophisticated. That if you are standing in a corner and you see a motorcycle doing, around the corner twice around the block, you immediately know that something going on. Well, you have to be trained for that. So you have to be very careful, but you have to be an expert or knowing, what are the signals or the to watch out for, all that kind of stuff. But the bulk of the population has to go to this market that are empty, completely empty, because they are empty, in which they can buy food. They could buy. Supposedly they could buy food, almost no cost, in real cost, but that's at the level of the money they have, the money they have. So, and then, I see the children very starving in the hospitals, because they have no food. They have no food, and it's very very difficult to watch, mothers and fathers, parents in that predicament, and they see their children dying. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Just watch the videos. It's just very difficult.
Okay.
But the left doesn't mind that. The left
Well,
always hate their own country.
so we will get to the left later after I get through the audience questions because I do have some I do have some questions for you. But Pinochet has one more question for him. And he also wants to tell you that there's a lot of Americans concerned about Venezuela. They just don't know how to help. But he asks, is the fuel black market still a point of contention between Colombia and Venezuela, and how so?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it was just...
Okay, so yeah, the answer is yes. Another question, which I think I can answer, is Bitcoin mining how they survive? No, that's not really it, but it brings up a different question. You've heard about this Petro, the new currency that Maduro. I thought was the most ridiculous thing in the world when I saw it. What do you think? I mean, what's going through his head when he makes a cryptocurrency that's dependent on oil, which oil can go down? And I mean, what do you think about that idea of his? Is it typical Maduro?
Well, no, I'm not very involved in that. I'm not an expert in Bitcoins or anything like that. I haven't looked into that. But he could be just doing something to look like he's doing something. Okay, the Petro, we're gonna do this, and then he expect to convince his followers that okay, things are going to be better around the corner because now we're gonna have the Petro, whatever. Of course, nothing's going to happen, but it's just give some substance to the or some hope to his followers, which
so it's public relations mainly.
Public relations, yeah, you can call it that way.
So I have another question from Larry Gergi. He says, notwithstanding, do a lot of people remain committed to the Bolivarian revolution, and will this rise in oil prices, because it is going up, could that help the Venezuelan government get back on its feet?
Well, I don't know what the support of Maduro is. I will say it's very low, but I cannot tell. He got into a new thing that was changing the constitution. He didn't go to an election that the constitution was calling for. So yeah, that in just that fact makes a dictator, because he wanted to go to election and he just refused. Okay, no, I didn't go to election. We're gonna have to this Congress that is going to change the constitution, and he puts on people. Okay, that's that's completely irregular. But anyway, I don't know exactly how much support he has. If he gets more money, yeah, probably he can do better. But if the Venezuelan government doesn't present a budget, he doesn't have to present a budget. A controller entity. They just get the money and they don't respond to anyone. Probably they should respond to someone, but that doesn't happen, to the assembly or something. But the thing is, they are not controlled in any way. Money, whatever they pleases, and they spend it whatever they want. And once you get into a state in which it's people, but the people seems to be are not motivated as a government. to expend this money on the people. They're kind of government. So let's keep it for ourselves, because see, they are starving, but they are not rebelling. So let's do nothing. Coin is uncontrollable. Is you cannot audit it because there is no books, there is nothing. So I don't know how well they will do if they got more money.
Okay, so I'm going to close the audience questions for now because I think we've given everybody a chance to ask. Now, I think we met on the same forum, a Los Angeles, Venezuela forum. I'm not from LA, I'm from Ohio, but I noticed that there were a couple people on there who were Venezuelan Americans who remained loyal to leftism of some sort or another. There was even one character on there that was an Antifa guy or something. And they kept saying, Donald Trump is basically another Hugo Chavez. What's your opinion on that? I mean, I'm pretty sure you have a pretty different opinion than that because, we've chatted a bit. But what's with some of these Venezuelans that do come here? I mean, we've had Carlos, who's a progressive, but he's not quite, the type that I'm talking about. He's been on this channel. What's the deal with some of these socialists that come here?
Okay, Carlos who?
Oh, he's just another guest I've had on the show.
But can you tell me last name?
Cordova.
Okay. No, okay. Yeah, I think I remember. I remember that there was some dialogue thing. Well,
but we're not talking about
people speaking.
Right. Carlos, I'm just saying, was one of our guests who's a progressive. But the people I'm talking about were kind of these. I think it doesn't matter. I'm not going to mention his name on the air, but they were saying that you need to rebel against Trump because he's basically like another Chavez or Maduro.
Well, the problem with Trump is that all these people that have something against Trump, I didn't vote for Trump, but I'm a rational guy. All these people, they just make up everything. Trump is this, Trump is that, Trump is the other. And when you ask, okay, give me some documentation, give me some link, give me some support, I cannot provide anything. So this is an emotional thing. The American left is an emotional trip. They just abandon reason. Everything they feel is the truth because they feel it. They don't have to provide any logic or documentation. So, and they say, well, Trump is Chavez. I say so. They didn't have any documentation. They cannot think. They cannot think. It's interesting phenomenon from the anthropological point of view. The left that cannot think, cannot argue, they just can react emotionally. And then these two guys, apparently are part of it. And Chavez, Trump is whatever they feel is, because it satisfies his emotional world. They refuse to look at fact or to prove their point. And if they prove, they find out that they cannot prove their point, to think, well, they are below all that thinking process. So these two persons say, well, Trump is Chavez. Well, no, Trump, I think he goes for less government, and Chavez goes for it's the socialists. They want a lot of government because that's their excuse to have total power. One, power, and more power. And their excuse is the poor. They always present it. No, it's for the poor. No, you want power. You want a strong government. Trump is person that is coming. For me, it's a centrist. It's not really right, but it's coming to reduce government, to reduce taxes. It's the typical right-wing, view that the government should be small, and that's what he's doing. I have a vague opinion of his government. I really support. I would say, I would like to put it this way. I'm a liberal. Gallup poll said I'm a liberal. And for me, for liberals, you don't talk about my president with that fervor. Your president is your employee. My employee. I'm the one that is the boss. And as a supervisor, I have to be very ethical in evaluating the performance of my employee. So I have to be very ethical in evaluating the performance of Donald Trump as my employee. I have to give him, the highest mark, exactly as I will order him to do as my employee, doing exactly what I would, what I think needs to be done. Employee, I have to give it very high mark, and I have to think very seriously in extending his contract in 4 years or 3, whatever.
Okay, so I have one more question from the audience, but I'm not going to take any more. But a few people have asked about Trinidad, which is Venezuela's northern island neighbor. They were asking if there is a lot of the same issues there, I think, with corruption and all of that. And they're also an oil producer. Do you think that there is similar problems there? And if not, why? If you, I can actually talk a bit about that, but go ahead.
I don't know much about Trinidad. Really, Venezuela and Trinidad don't have much contact, even though they are really, really very, very, very close. But Trinidad was sold to the English empire before Venezuela became independent. So it was never part of Venezuela, Republic of Venezuela. It was sold in the 1700s or something. It's very close, but it's entirely, completely different country. It's a different tradition. It's a British tradition. And that makes me think that probably is much better administered. The rule of law probably has a more respect. Let me tell you, Simón Bolívar, the number one, had a very, very positive image of the British institution. He could, in the Venezuelan history, Latin American history, to implement British institution in the new colonies that now were becoming countries, right? So I share that view, that Bolivar's view about the British institution. And you can see in the New World, the British ex-colonies are doing much better than all the Spanish colonies and things like that. There might be other reasons, but I think
that's amazing. That's actually exactly what I've been thinking about for a while, and it's funny to hear from you, but yeah, that's very similar to the way I think about the British institutions of separation of powers and the the rights of the individual and freedom of the press.
Yeah, the Magna Carta and all that tradition. Yeah.
So let me see. I think we're done with all the audience questions anyway. That question, by the way, was from Pat Sella, and I will comment about Trinidad. We will have possibly a stream on Sunday with somebody from Barbados, a similar country to Trinidad. And what I can say is that the situation there is a little different. I think Trinidad has less than 1 million citizens. They have oil. It's certainly not a country where everybody's rich. And you know, there is drug trafficking, like some of you have been talking about. Patsella, I don't know if that was you who put it up there, but I think Trinidad, they don't have to deal with so many of the problems of Venezuela because it simply isn't as large of a country, and it does have you know, a Commonwealth style of government, like Guillermo was talking about. So getting back to, you know, the topic of living here as opposed to Venezuela. Now, I've seen a lot of videos. I've talked to Juan Carlo, one of my other guests, and some other people. You know, there's some of these. I think they're called bully burguesas. These people that are, you know, friends of the Maduro regime, and they make a lot of cash. You know, Tarek Aissami, I think, is one of them, the vice president, and Diosdado Cabello and Delcy Rodriguez, and they're making all this money and they're coming here. Now, I suspect, and I'm working on some stuff about it, and I could use help from anybody who has accounting experience. I suspect that there are certain institutions that are using Venezuelan money to invest in a number of activities here in the U.S. Do you know anybody from that type of background, these bully burguesas, these Venezuelans that come here and they're still loyal to the Maduro regime? Or do you have any experience with people like that?
No, I don't know them personally. Videos that people circulate, you know, or what they do, where they are found,
The
where
Fuera
people,
videos.
Confront them when they meet them somewhere in Europe or in United States. You know, I have the rumors of Chavez's daughter being multimillionaire. All his family is being, you know, is full of money. I have all that, but you know, the rumor that is you know, this saying that everybody can hear. You know, it's, for me, it's a second hand, third hand, or whatever number end hand news when he reached me from friends. You know.
Well, I've actually found sources, you know, and I could send you the video where you know, I document it, which has the links, that Swiss banks have actually been revealed to have lots of deposits from people like Mr. Chavez's former bodyguard, and they're basically laundering cash through the international monetary system, which is something they usually criticize capitalists like me or the majority of my people for. And they say, oh, the banking system is rife with criminals. Well, I personally think it's an insult to the intelligence of their own citizens to constantly attack capitalists for money laundering when they do it literally all the time.
Well, Ramon, remember, it's just a farce. The left is a farce. It's just a farce.
Right, I agree.
The same that everybody else. It's a farce that some naive people buy. Oh no, I'm doing it for the good. DACA. Oh, this is a good for these poor children that were no, you know, they were innocent and brought over here. Well, they want DACA because they want people that vote from them. I'm talking about the Democrats, by the way, and a registered Democrat. You know, but that's it. A farce. Oh, I'm good. I want something good. And probably some people at a very low level, they buy the whole thing and they believe it, and they very naively the whole thing. Oh yes, the poor boys and girls that were brought without, you know, and but that's not it. The people at the top is just cynical. It's just they don't do it that for that. They want the Democratic Party is a corporation that sells government favors to corporation. I mean, it's a corporation that sells government favors to many people, even out internationally, and they have to have some credibility on those people that buy their favors, you know. And then, well, you know, yeah, we can law that favors the pharma industry, because I have followers that are so naive that believe in us, and they're going to vote for us because they think that we are for them. No, we are not for them. You know, they don't know the truth. You know, this is the two views that Hillary Clinton spoke, and some bank about the public view or the public position and the private position and things like that.
Goldman Sachs.
So
exactly.
you know, yeah. So the you know that's the whole thing. These people, same as everybody, they enjoy money, they enjoy luxuries, they like it. They just have found a way of an excuse to sell their image to naive people, and so naive people still buy it. Oh yes, they are socialists. They are for the poor. They are for you know, for the people that needs help. Oh yeah, are good. Oh yes. Look, if you it's just a farce. It's just a farce. And they do what the devil would do if the devil could come to earth. The devil will never present the devil. No, he will say, "Oh no, I'm an angel," and that's what they do. They are the
Yeah.
devil incarnated, and then they sell themselves because that's what the devil will do. I'm not a religious guy. I'm just talking poetically, with poetic license. Let's put it this way.
So Larry says he's asking if you're in LA. He says he wants to have a beer next time he's down there. So we'll see. We'll see if Guillermo comes on again. But I do want to say, yeah, when I was 16, it was the 2000 election, and back then I was, pretty left wing, and I was thinking if I could vote, I wouldn't even vote for Al Gore. He's not left enough for me. I would have voted for Ralph Nader, who I still think is more intelligent than Al Gore or George Bush. But I think that you're very what you're saying really resonates with a lot of people that I know who we started off as more liberal or more progressive. I don't know what the word is, and then we sort of grew into reality. For me it was the military and the workforce. Why do you think that there are a lot of people who, especially in Venezuela or in the Venezuelan exile, that still, some of them I still observe, do believe in socialism or some form of Chavismo?
Well, one of the Venezuelan characters, Venezuela always been leftist, socialism, to help the poor, and that always been the left, the Venezuelan view. Even the right wing has to present himself as a leftist. They are always trying to help the poor and all that kind of rhetoric. That's the Venezuelan character. The Venezuelan character comes, well, if you want a little parenthesis, the independence war was very, very cruel in Venezuela. All the high class was wiped out. The only thing left in the country was, the uneducated, a big, uneducated class. And that tended to be, leftists, liberals. All the civil war were liberal. So, and that's part of the Venezuelan character. The Venezuelan cannot feel themselves as right wing, in the sense that, yes, they have the industry, pay less taxes because that's their money. They work for it, so they deserve to enjoy their money. That's not the way the Venezuelans think. They tend to think, if you have money, you should help the poor. So I wouldn't be surprised that even against Chavez, or being against Chavez or being against Maduro, they still will hold this belief. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm a liberal, as I said before, liberal belief in the sense of, separation of church and state, reproductive rights, oppose the death penalty, things like that. I still endorse that because that came to me by intellectual, rational analysis, indoctrination of anything. I think, well, like a death penalty. Why not death penalty? Well, the legal system is always imperfect. Why? Because it's made by people. So if it's imperfect, you cannot have the right to impose the maximum death penalty. It's just a logical deduction. And in that respect, and liberal in a sense. But I'm far away from being those snowflakes, people that cannot argue, and absurdity that the liberals are now. And I said, as a liberal, I consider Mr. Trump my employee, right? And I don't fall into the my president, which is something that the liberals fall. Oh, it's not my president. What are you talking about? It's your employee. It was hired by the country. You might not like it, but it's your employee, so it's not my president. They have the mentality of subordination, of surrendering to the boss, to the chief. I don't have that, right? So, and as I said, as my employee, I fully support my employee, Donald Trump. I think he's doing a terrific job. And I can argue about it. If some liberal wants to think and argue. And I do argue with them when I can.
So it's been a great evening. A lot of people in the chat have a lot of enthusiasm for just a lot of the ideas you're expressing and the experiences. We would be glad to have you back if you have time. I know it was kind of hard to arrange this one. I would also like to invite you one day when we have Carlos Cordova, one of my other guests, frequent guests, not just on Venezuela, but yes, I think it would be good to have a joint broadcast on Venezuela, and of course Gabriel and Juan Carlo, if we can get him back. Haven't seen him for a while. How about let's try 2 minutes. Sum up. What do you think's next for your country? I mean, I'm seeing it. It just seems to get worse every day. I was reading an environmental article about how they're destroying the Amazonas and Orinoco region there too. The government they can't do anything right. So what do you think is the next big issue over there, or do you think this is pretty much going to continue the way it has been?
Well, the next issue for my country is that we're going to dismantle the deep state. We're going to recover our constitution as the way it should be.
So you're talking about America, but you know what I meant.
I'm trying to pull in your leg.
I know, but I talk about America a lot. I do focus on Venezuela on this.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that. Let me answer a call in 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Tony, how you doing? At the home, yeah.
I'm putting him on mute, so. Anyway, I do know a lot of you are going back to the Lionel broadcast, but here we go. We're closing up. 1 second. Hold on, Guillermo. They can't hear you. Let me see if I can unmute you. Hold on 1 second. Control room. It's not letting me unmute him. Guillermo, I don't think I can even get. For some reason, I can't unmute you. That's awful. So.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to mute you because you were on the phone, but go ahead. Why is it? I think it actually muted you again. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with this button. So
I'm seeing you.
let me ask the audience if the audience can hear you.
Hello?
Audience, can the audience hear? Somebody please say in the chat whether Guillermo, can you say something? Let's see.
Yeah, and I don't have a big picture of you. I have a small picture of you now.
Yes.
It used to to get the whole screen, but now it's just a little corner, the right corner.
Okay, so now I'm back to regular screen. Okay. Can you see me now?
I can see you. I've been able to see you all the time, but just as a little corner.
Okay.
On the right low corner.
So everybody please type in the chat whether you can hear Guillermo. Okay, so let me see if I can turn the camera back on for you. For some reason, they also. Anyway, I guess you can. Yeah, so they can hear you. So go ahead. Final comment. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I if you can hear me, I can hear you. No problem.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I have to say that I don't see a future for Venezuela. I don't see just a black hole. The only thing that could change that is in international intervention. But I think, and this is what I tell the Venezuelan when I meet them, I give them my honest opinion. They say, "No, why you gonna? How can you go to elections if the dictatorship has all the control and things like that?" Say, well, if the international community suppose that they want to help, they need an excuse, and abstinence is not an excuse. An excuse could be that an election is stolen in Venezuela. But if no election is stolen, it's difficult for anyone, any government, any international entity to intervene in favor of the Venezuelan people. But that's the Venezuelans are. That's the way they think. They think that just by not going to election, that legitimize the government, and he doesn't. That's what they did with Chavez, and Chavez, always push somehow for the opposition to abstain going to election. Wow. I told people that was dumb, but that's the way they did it, and they're still doing it. So for me, Venezuela is a black hole. I don't think anything is going to change. I'm quite pessimistic about it.
Okay, so
Only
go ahead.
an outside intervention might make a difference.
So thanks everybody for joining us today. Let me see if yeah. So you guys can see me now. I want to thank Guillermo Rios for joining us. It was a fantastic time had by all, even with the technical difficulties. You're welcome back anytime. And I want to give one message to any Venezuelans out there. Si usted quiere dar su historia para nuestro canal, por favor contáctame. I'm sorry for my Peggy Hill Spanish, Guillermo, but I don't really travel that much. But thank you very much and have a great evening.
You too. And thanks to all.
All right. And goodbye to Larry, King Kush, Pat Sella, Pinochet, Earl, and filming in Portland, and anybody else who I missed. Everybody have a splendid evening. Good night.